Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are jumping into something really fascinating. A small book with a huge reputation, the Kybalion.
That's right, the Kybalion. A study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece. Came out in 1908, written by, well, 3 initiates, still anonymous.
Right, the mystery adds to it, and it claims to be this distillation of ancient wisdom straight from Hermes Trismegistus.
They have immense reverence for him, calling him the great master of masters. I mean, the absolute center of occultism in their view.
And the historical note they drop is pretty wild, that Hermes was supposedly around at the same time as Abraham, maybe even taught him.
Yeah, they definitely position this knowledge as incredibly ancient, predating almost everything else we think of as foundational.
So what's the book for? They say it's not a new philosophy.
No, not at all. They're very clear. It's meant to be a master key. That's the term.
A master key. Okay, to unlock what exactly?
Yeah. It's for you, the listener, the student. It's supposed to help make sense of all those different bits of occult or spiritual knowledge you might have picked up. The stuff that seems contradictory.
Ah, okay. So if you're feeling lost in, like, conflicting teachings, this is meant to be the unifying framework.
That's the idea, to prevent that feeling of discouragement, you know?
Makes sense. But before we get to the framework itself, what about the secrecy? This knowledge was guarded for centuries, from lip to ear. Why so secretive? Seems a bit, I don't know, elitist.
Well, they address that. They argue the masters were wise, not wanting to be martyrs. Why teach profound truth to a world completely unprepared or unwilling to hear them?
So it wasn't just about keeping secrets, but maybe protecting the teaching.
Exactly. And think about the Middle Ages, the persecution. They had to veil things. They used the language of alchemy, of astrology, as a kind of code.
To hide the deeper spiritual meanings from, say, the church authorities.
Precisely. If you just saw guys trying to make gold, you missed the point. You weren't ready for the real mental alchemy.
Okay, that helps frame it. So let's get into that real lesson, the foundation. They start with something called the all.
Yes, the all. It's their term for the fundamental reality behind everything. All of the stuff we see, matter, energy, life, it's all just manifestation. The all is the substantial reality underneath.
But it's also unknowable.
In its absolute essence, yes.
Yeah.
Infinite, eternal, unchanging. How could our finite minds grasp that directly?
And this leads them to push back hard against pure materialism.
Absolutely. They look at the universe, see constant change, nothing permanent.
Right.
So reality can't just be dead matter or blind energy. Because we exist. Mind exists. Life exists.
And their logic is nothing can rise higher than its source.
Exactly. If the source was just mindless force, how did mind emerge? It had to be inherent in the source itself.
Which brings us straight to the first and maybe the biggest Hermetic principle, mentalism.
The cornerstone. The axiom is simple but profound. The all is mind. The universe is mental.
Whoa, okay. Let that sink in. If the universe is mental, then what is all this physical reality?
It's a mental creation, happening within the mind of the all, like a thought, or maybe a sustained meditation, of the infinite. We literally live and move and have our being inside this universal mind.
That changes everything, our relationship to reality itself.
It certainly gives you a different perspective, maybe even some leverage. That's why they warn, he who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery.
Because if reality is fundamentally mental,
then mental forces can influence it, change it.
And that's the real secret of alchemy they were hiding, mental transmutation.
You got it. Forget lead into gold. That was the smokescreen, the allegory. True Hermetic alchemy is about mastering your own mental states, transmuting one kind of mental vibration into another.
So if the universe is mental, you can change conditions, matter, force, mind, using your mind.
That's the great art they talk about, mental transmutation. It's the power that comes from understanding mentalism.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Mind is all. Now, how does this mental universe work? What are the rules? This is where the other principles come in.
Right. There are 7 total. We've done mentalism.
Yeah.
Then there's correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender.
Let's start with number 2, correspondence. The famous as above, so below.
As below, so above. Yes, this is huge. It's presented as a tool for reasoning.
How so? Like practically.
It lets you understand the unknown by looking at the known. The same patterns, the same laws operate on every level of reality, from the tiniest particle to the grandest cosmic structure.
The book gives that example, right? Like using geometry to measure planets.
Exactly. Geometry lets you measure distant suns from down here. Correspondence lets you study the monad, the simplest unit of being, and understand the archangel, the highest spiritual intelligences.
So the same basic principles apply across all scales of existence. That's a powerful idea.
It really is. It connects everything.
Okay, what's next? Principle 3, vibration.
This one feels almost modern, doesn't it? Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates.
Sounds like physics.
Kind of. They say that all the differences we see between matter, energy, mind, even spirit, are basically just differences in the rate of vibration.
Faster vibrations are higher, slower, or lower?
Generally, yes. And spirit, or the all, vibrates so incredibly fast at such an infinite intensity that it actually seems to be still, like a spinning wheel that looks motionless.
And understanding this gives you power. The scepter of power, the text says. How?
Because if everything's vibration, and vibration can be changed, well, if you learn to control vibration, starting with your own mental vibrations, you can influence reality. It's about conscious control over your frequency.
Consciously changing your frequency. That sounds like it leads right into polarity. Principle 4.
It does. Polarity explains the dualities we see everywhere. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree.
This is the idea that opposites aren't really opposite.
Exactly. They're just two extremes of the same thing, like hot and cold.
Right, the thermometer example. Where does cold actually stop and heat begin? There's no absolute line. It's just degrees of vibration.
Precisely. And this applies mentally, too. Love and hate, same spectrum. Fear and courage, same thing, different ends.
Which means you can change one to the other.
Yes. That's transmutation again. You don't destroy hate and create love. You change the polarity. You shift your mental vibration along that scale using your will, from the negative pole to the positive.
Okay, that's a really practical application. Using will to shift polarity. This connects to principle 7, doesn't it? Gender. But they mean more than just physical sex.
Oh, absolutely. Gender for them is a universal principle of creation, of generation. It operates on all planes, spiritual, mental, physical. It's about the masculine and feminine principles always working together.
And crucially, these principles operate inside our own minds.
Yes, this is key. Your mind has both. The masculine principle's the I. It's your will, your conscious director, the aspect of being.
The one that chooses, that acts.
Right. And the feminine principle is the me. It's like the mental womb, the receptive part, the aspect of becoming. It receives ideas, generates thoughts, emotions.
So the masculine I directs, and the feminine me creates or receives.
Perfect way to put it. The me is what gets influenced by suggestion, by telepathy, by the environment. It's the fertile ground. The I is the gardener who decides what seeds to plant there.
So mental mastery involves the I, the will, consciously directing and guarding the me, the receptive mind.
Exactly. You use your masculine will to choose the thoughts and impressions you allow into your feminine mental womb. You decide what gets generated.
And they suggest most people don't do this.
They're pretty blunt about it. They
Yeah.
talk about the sheep-like masses whose masculine will is lazy, passive. So their me just soaks up whatever suggestions come along from other people, from the news, from habit. They become mentally dominated without even realizing it.
That's a challenging thought. It puts responsibility squarely back on the individual's use of will.
It does. Which leads us to a really important point the student has to grapple with. The divine paradox.
Okay, what's the paradox?
We've established the universe is mental, right? An illusion, a dream, from the absolute perspective of the all.
Right.
But you and I are in that dream. From our relative viewpoint, it's very, very real. You can't just ignore the rules of the dream because you know it's a dream.
Ah, okay. So you can't just say, oh, it's all mental, and then like jump off a cliff expecting not to fall.
Precisely. The book warns against the half-wise who do that. They grasp the unreality but think they can defy the laws of the relative plane. And they get, quote, broken against the rocks.
So the truly wise person doesn't deny the laws.
No, they use the laws.
Yeah.
They use law against laws, the higher against the lower. They apply higher principles to overcome the limitations of the lower ones. That's the art of alchemy, of transmutation.
Using higher law against lower law. Can you give an example, maybe with rhythm? Principle 5.
Good one. Rhythm is the principle of flow, of cycles. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides, ups and downs, mood swings, enthusiasm followed by the blues. It seems inevitable.
Yeah, that backswing can be rough. How does the master handle it?
They don't stop the tide. That's impossible. But they learn to rise above it in their consciousness. They use polarity and will. When the downward swing of mood starts, they consciously polarize themselves at the I am pole, the positive pole of their being.
So they refuse to get sucked down emotionally.
They neutralize the swing on the conscious plane. They let the pendulum swing back on the unconscious level, but they hold their conscious awareness steady at the desired positive state. They don't deny the rhythm, they master its effect on them.
Transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. That's a key line, isn't it?
It sums it up perfectly. It's about working with the principles, not pretending they don't exist.
This ties into the final principle we need to touch on, cause and effect. Principle 6, nothing escapes the law. Chance is just law not recognized.
Right. For most people, they are effects. They're pushed around by causes. They don't understand their upbringing, their environment, suggestions from others, their own unconscious habits. They're like pawns on the chessboard.
But mastery means becoming a cause.
It means becoming a mover instead of a pawn. By understanding the laws, by mastering your own mind, your moods, your character, you rise to a higher plane of causation. You start choosing the causes that will produce effects in your life.
So you're still obeying law, but you're operating from a higher level of it.
Exactly. You become a conscious part of the law, working with it, instead of being blindly moved by it. You rule on the lower planes by obeying the higher.
Wow, okay. Putting it all together, mentalism as the foundation and these principles as the operating system, it really does feel like a master key.
It provides a coherent way to look at reality, and crucially, it emphasizes your own mental power and responsibility within that reality. You're not just a passive observer. You're participating in a mental universe.
It shifts the perspective from being a victim of circumstance to potentially being a conscious creator of circumstance within the laws.
Precisely. It aims to empower the student.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, the final takeaway from the Kybalion, if you really absorb this mental framework, seems to be one of potential.
Yeah.
And maybe even safety.
Definitely. The text is ultimately very comforting, despite the challenges. It emphasizes that because the universe is the mind of the all, you are always within that mind, safe, protected.
It says something like, the universe is your home, and you shall explore its farthest recesses before the end of time.
Yeah, this sense of an infinite journey, always upward and onward, within this infinite supportive mind.
So the final provocative thought, straight from the source, you are never truly alone or unprotected because you exist within the father-mother mind of the all. There's not one who is fatherless nor motherless in the universe. If that's true, if you're part of that infinite mind, what thoughts will you consciously choose to cultivate next?